In this RoutBot CNC application video, we will see how to write to disk machine tuning for different type of material. We have a port, we have loaded a G code, and we can even go to display the port. This is a very simple port that we have loaded, and we would like to machine this port using machine tuning for plastic. So the way we do that is we go to the file and we're going to load plastic machine tuning. By doing this, the actual parameters for machining this part will be the default for plastic. Now, we have made some experiment and we saw that the default value for plastic were not exactly as we wish, and we would like to modify them. Now, to do that, we go to the setting and we go to velocity. Now, we find out that our CNC is capable of machining plastic at a slightly higher rate than the default value that is set in the system for plastic. And remember, the default value set for plastic is based on several experiments for machining plastic, different type of plastic with a certain CNC. So it is not an absolute value. It's a good starting point. But as you're working with your particular plastic, particular CNC, you might find out that you can adjust this value to, have better result. So this is what was done. We basically found out that we want to slightly change the value for machining plastic, and we want to make it permanent so that the next time we're machining this material, we don't have to re-enter the value. We just go and use the plastic machine parameter. To do that, we go and we modify based on our testing the plastic parameter. So let's say, as an example, we're going to double these routing velocities to 0.4 inch per second, for example. Now, we have made the modification, and right now the parameter file that has been loaded for machining is the plastic parameter file. So to make sure that we apply this change to the controller, we got to make sure that we apply velocity by clicking this button, because we basically change what the default for plastic is, and we got to make sure that this is very first downloaded to the controller. So we're going to click on apply velocities to controller. Now all the velocities have been applied to the controller. Now if we machine this part and we are happy with the result as in this example show, and the next time we want to machine a different part, we want to also reload the same plastic and get the same velocities again. The way to do it is to actually save the plastic parameter. Now, before we save the plastic parameter, we always got to make sure that we have applied these changes to the controller first, so all the changes are current. Now, what we do is we go to the file and we write to disk the current machining parameters for plastic. So we do that. Now, what we have done is, first of all, we loaded the default machining parameter for plastic. Then we modify them to make the CNC go twice as fast. We apply it to the controller, and then we save these new values to the hard drive as plastic parameter again. So now that change is somehow become permanent. So the next time we go and we reload again the machine parameter for plastic, it will have the same value that we have already saved. So this is how we can basically make permanent a change for a type of material. And we can do the same thing if we are machining, for example, wood, or we are machining metal. We can do the same thing. We can basically load the default value for this type of material, and experiment with it, and if we are happy with the default value, then we leave it as is. If we feel that we can slightly change those default values, we change them. Then we go back and we write to disk these parameters, and then the next time we load them, they will always be the latest value we have saved. The only thing we got to remember is there is a difference between what we apply to the controller, in the sense that when we make any changes to these values, we got to always make sure that we apply those changes to the controller before we go and save them to disk, because what is saved to disk is always the value that is on the controller, and the only way you can make sure that your values are on the controller is when you change something, you apply it to the controller first, and then you save it to disk.